I met Lisa when I was 25. She was 23, fresh out of college and full of life. Her bright blue eyes and infectious laughter drew me in, and I was hooked from the start. We met at a friend's wedding, and it felt like the universe had conspired to bring us together. Our connection was immediate and electric, something out of a romance novel. We dated for 2 years before I proposed. Those 2 years were the happiest of my life. We traveled, shared dreams, and built a life together. Lisa was everything I had ever wanted in a partner: beautiful, intelligent, and caring. We talked about everything under the sun, and I felt like I could share my deepest thoughts with her. She seemed to reciprocate, making me feel secure and loved. Our wedding was a fairy tale. We decided on a beach ceremony, something intimate with just close friends and family. The weather was perfect, the ocean breeze gentle, and the sunset painted the sky with hues of orange and pink. As Lisa walked down the aisle in her white dress, her eyes locked with mine, and I felt like the luckiest man alive. When we said our vows, promising to love and cherish each other for the rest of our lives, I believed every word. I believed she did too. Our first few years of marriage were blissful. We moved into a charming house in the suburbs, started our careers, and planned our future. We spent weekends renovating the house, turning it into a cozy home. Lisa was an incredible partner, supportive, loving, and my best friend. We laughed together, cried together, and grew together. We faced life's challenges as a team, and I couldn't imagine my life without her. When Lisa became pregnant with our daughter, Emily, our happiness multiplied. The pregnancy brought us even closer, and we eagerly awaited the arrival of our baby girl. The day Emily was born was the second happiest day of my life. Holding her tiny body in my arms, I felt a profound sense of love and responsibility. Lisa was radiant, and we both marveled at the miracle of our daughter. As Emily grew, so did our bond as a family. We cherished every milestone: her first steps, her first words, her first day of school. Lisa was a fantastic mother, and I admired her even more for the way she cared for Emily. We were the perfect family, or so I thought. Years passed, and life settled into a comfortable routine. Lisa and I both advanced in our careers, and Emily blossomed into a beautiful, intelligent young woman. She moved out when she turned 18, eager to start her own life, but we remained close. Our family wasn't perfect, but we were happy, and I was content. I had no idea that everything I had built, everything I held dear, was about to come crashing down. Looking back, I wonder if there were signs that I missed, small things that should have tipped me off that something was wrong. But at the time, I was blissfully ignorant, wrapped up in my little bubble of contentment. Life was good, and I had no reason to suspect otherwise. Lisa and I had been married for nearly 20 years, and while the initial fire of our relationship had settled into a comfortable warmth, I still loved her deeply. We had our routines, our shared jokes, our little rituals that had become the fabric of our life together. We still went on dates, celebrated anniversaries, and tried to keep the romance alive. Sure, we had our arguments and disagreements, but what couple doesn't? Emily, now 19 and living on her own, would often come over for dinner. She was close to both of us, confiding in her mother about her relationships and seeking my advice on her career. When she introduced us to her new boyfriend, Tyler, I saw a bit of myself in the young man. He was ambitious, charming, and seemed to genuinely care for Emily. I welcomed him into our home, pleased that Emily had found someone who treated her well. But as the months went by, I noticed a change in Lisa. She seemed distant, preoccupied, and often lost in her thoughts. When I asked if something was bothering her, she would brush it off, claiming work was just stressful or that she was tired. I didn't press her, believing her explanations. After all, we had been together for so long that I trusted her implicitly. One evening, Emily called me, her voice trembling. She asked if she could come over to talk. When she arrived, her eyes were red from crying and she looked utterly devastated. I hugged her, my heart breaking at the sight of my little girl in so much pain. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Dad, I don't know how to say this," she began, tears streaming down her face. "I think Mom is having an affair." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt the world around me tilt and struggled to stay upright. "What are you talking about, Emily?" I managed to ask, my voice barely a whisper. Emily took a deep breath and pulled out her phone. "I saw messages on Tyler's phone. From Mom. They were intimate. They were talking about meeting up, and there were things that no mother should be saying to her daughter's boyfriend." I stared at the phone, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. It felt like a nightmare, something so surreal that it couldn't possibly be true. But the evidence was right there, undeniable and horrifying. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the messages, my vision blurring with tears of rage and betrayal. How could she do this? How could Lisa, the woman I had loved and trusted for decades, betray me and our daughter in such a monstrous way? I looked at Emily, who was sobbing uncontrollably. "I'm so sorry, Dad. I didn't know how to tell you. I couldn't keep it to myself anymore." I pulled her into a tight hug, my own tears flowing freely now. "It's not your fault, Emily. None of this is your fault." In that moment, I felt a surge of emotions: anger, sadness, betrayal, and an overwhelming need for answers. I knew that I had to confront Lisa, to hear the truth from her own lips, and I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The night after Emily revealed the messages, I hardly slept. I tossed and turned, my mind racing with anger and betrayal. How could Lisa do this to us? To our family? To Emily? I knew I had to confront her, but I needed to be calm and collected for Emily's sake. She was already hurting, and I couldn't let her see me lose control. The next morning, I woke up early and made Emily's favorite breakfast: pancakes with chocolate chips and strawberries. She smiled weakly as she picked at her food, the usual sparkle in her eyes dimmed by the weight of her discovery. I hugged her tightly before she left for her part-time job, promising her that everything would be okay. Once Emily was out of the house, I sat in the kitchen waiting for Lisa to come downstairs. She appeared a few minutes later, looking as if she hadn't slept either. Her eyes were puffy and she seemed startled to see me sitting there, waiting. "Morning," she said cautiously, pouring herself a cup of coffee. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady but cold. She looked at me, fear flashing in her eyes. "About what?" "About Tyler, about what you've been doing behind my back. Emily saw the messages, Lisa." "She knows." Lisa's face went pale and she sank into a chair, her coffee cup trembling in her hands. I can explain," she stammered. "Explain?" I repeated, incredulous. "Explain how you could betray me, betray our family, by sleeping with our daughter's boyfriend. How long has this been going on, Lisa?" Tears streamed down her face as she tried to speak. "It wasn't supposed to happen. I never meant to hurt you or Emily. It just happened. It just happened." I slammed my hand on the table, causing her to flinch. "That's not good enough, Lisa. You don't just accidentally sleep with someone, especially not our daughter's boyfriend. How long has this been going on?" She sobbed, unable to meet my eyes. "A few months. It started innocently enough. We were just talking, and then one night it went too far. I didn't know how to stop it." "You didn't know how to stop it?" I shouted, my anger boiling over. "You should have never started it. You've destroyed everything, Lisa. Our marriage, our family, our daughter's trust in both of us. How could you be so selfish?" She cried harder, covering her face with her hands. "I'm so sorry, Will. I know I've ruined everything. Please give me a chance to make it right." I stood up, unable to bear looking at her any longer. "I don't see how you can make this right. I want you out of the house. Now. We'll figure out the rest later, but for now, I can't even look at you." "Please, Will," she begged, reaching for me. "Let's talk about this. We can get through this together." I stepped back, shaking my head. "No, Lisa, you've crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. Pack your things and leave." She nodded, defeated, and went upstairs to pack. As she did, I called Emily and told her to come home. I didn't want her to find out from anyone else. When she arrived, I hugged her tightly, trying to offer some semblance of comfort. "Mom is packing her things and leaving," I told her gently. "We'll figure out what to do next, but for now, it's just you and me, kiddo." Emily nodded, her eyes filled with tears. I hate her for what she's done, Dad. But I also miss her. How can she do this to us? I don't know, sweetheart, I said, holding her close. But we'll get through this together. I promise. Lisa came downstairs with her bags, her face a mask of sorrow and regret. She looked at Emily, her eyes pleading for forgiveness. Emily, I'm so sorry. I love you so much. Please believe me. Emily turned away, unable to look at her mother. Just go, she whispered. Lisa hesitated for a moment, then walked out the door, leaving us behind. As I watched her go, a mix of emotions churned inside me: anger, sadness, and a deep sense of loss. The woman I had loved and trusted had betrayed me in the worst possible way, and there was no turning back. The days that followed were a blur. Emily and I tried to establish a new routine, but the absence of Lisa was palpable. We filled our days with activities and distractions, trying to avoid the gaping hole in our lives. Friends and family reached out, offering support and comfort, but it was hard to accept. The wound was too fresh, the betrayal too raw. Emily struggled the most. She withdrew into herself, spending hours alone in her room. I tried to be there for her, but I knew I couldn't fully understand the depth of her pain. Not only had she lost her mother, but she had also been betrayed by someone she loved and trusted. One evening, as I was cleaning up after dinner, Emily came into the kitchen. Dad, can we talk? Of course, I said, setting down the dish I was washing. What's on your mind? She took a deep breath, tears welling in her eyes. I don't know how to deal with this. I hate Mom for what she did, but I also miss her. And Tyler. I thought he loved me. I hugged her tightly, my own eyes filling with tears. I know, sweetheart. This is incredibly hard, and it's okay to feel confused. We'll get through this together, one step at a time. She nodded, clinging to me. I just want things to go back to the way they were. So do I said softly. But we'll find a new normal, and we'll be stronger for it. I promise. As we held each other, I felt a glimmer of hope. We had been dealt a devastating blow, but we were still standing. And as long as we had each other, we could face whatever came next. The days following Lisa's departure were filled with a mixture of sorrow and anger. Emily and I were trying to find our footing in a world that had been shattered by betrayal. Despite the emotional turmoil, I knew I had to confront Tyler. He had not only betrayed my daughter, but also destroyed my family. I wanted answers, and I wanted to see the look in his eyes when he realized the extent of the damage he had caused. I reached out to Emily, who was still struggling to process everything. Emily, I'm going to talk to Tyler, I told her one afternoon. I need to understand why he did this, and I need him to understand what he's done to us. Emily looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of pain and apprehension. Do you think it will help, Dad? I don't know, I admitted, but I need to do this for both of us. She nodded, giving me a small, supportive smile. Just be careful, okay? I will, I promised, hugging her tightly. I'll be back soon. I knew where Tyler lived. He had mentioned it a few times during family dinners and casual conversations. His apartment was in a nondescript building on the other side of town. I drove there, my mind racing with thoughts of what I would say and how I would keep my anger in check. When I arrived, I stood outside his door, taking a few deep breaths to steady myself. I knocked, and after a moment, Tyler opened the door. His eyes widened in surprise and fear when he saw me standing there. Mr. Johnson, he stammered, clearly caught off guard. What are you doing here? We need to talk, I said, my voice calm but firm. May I come in? He hesitated, then stepped aside to let me in. His apartment was small and sparsely furnished, a stark contrast to the home I had built with Lisa. I could feel the tension in the air as he closed the door behind me. What do you want to talk about? He asked, trying to sound casual but failing miserably. I turned to face him, my eyes burning with intensity. I want to know why you did it, Tyler. Why did you betray my daughter and my family? He looked down, unable to meet my gaze. I don't know. It just happened. Lisa and we got close, and one thing led to another. That's not good enough, I snapped, my anger flaring. You don't just accidentally get involved with someone's wife, especially not your girlfriend's mother. Do you have any idea what you've done to Emily? To me? To our family? He flinched, guilt written all over his face. I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt anyone. I care about Emily, but Lisa and we just connected in a way I didn't expect. Connected, I repeated, disbelief and anger mixing in my voice. Do you even understand the damage you've caused? Emily is devastated. She loved you, Tyler. She trusted you. And you threw it all away for what? A fling with her mother? Tyler's shoulders slumped, and he looked utterly defeated. I know I messed up. I wish I could take it back, but I can't. I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson, I really am. I took a step closer, my voice low and threatening. You need to stay away from Emily. She's already been hurt enough by all of this, and if you ever come near her again, I swear I'll make sure you regret it. He nodded, tears welling in his eyes. I understand, I'll stay away. Please, just tell Emily I'm sorry. I stared at him for a moment, my anger still simmering but my resolve firm. I'll tell her, but it's not going to change what you did. With that, I turned and walked out of his apartment, feeling a mix of satisfaction and sorrow. Confronting Tyler hadn't brought the closure I had hoped for, but it had at least given me a chance to express my anger and make it clear that he was not welcome in our lives anymore. When I returned home, Emily was waiting for me, her eyes filled with concern. How did it go? She asked quietly. I sighed, sitting down beside her. It went as well as it could, I suppose. He's sorry, but that doesn't change anything. I made it clear that he needs to stay away from you. She nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. Thank you, Dad. I don't want to see him again. I just want to move on. We will, sweetheart, I promised, hugging her tightly. We'll get through this together. Over the next few weeks, Emily and I focused on rebuilding our lives. We spent more time together, finding solace in each other's company. The pain of betrayal was still there, but it was beginning to fade, replaced by a sense of determination to move forward. Lisa, meanwhile, reached out a few times, begging for forgiveness and asking for another chance. Each time I felt a pang of sadness and anger, but I knew in my heart that I couldn't go back. The trust had been broken beyond repair, and there was no way to rebuild it. One evening, as Emily and I were having dinner, my phone buzzed with a message from Lisa. I ignored it, focusing on the conversation with Emily. She was telling me about a new project she was working on for school, her eyes lighting up with excitement. Dad, I was thinking of painting a mural in my room, she said, her enthusiasm contagious. Would you help me? Of course, I replied, smiling. That sounds like a great idea. What do you want to paint? She thought for a moment, her brow furrowing in concentration. Maybe something with lots of colors and nature, like a forest with animals and flowers. I love that idea, I said, feeling a warmth spread through me. We'll get the supplies this weekend and start planning it out. As we continued to talk, I felt a sense of hope for the first time in weeks. We were beginning to heal, finding new ways to connect and create a future that was different from what we had imagined, but still filled with love and joy. The following weekend, Emily and I went to the art supply store and picked out paints and brushes. We spent hours planning the mural, sketching out ideas and deciding on colors. It was a project that brought us closer together, a way to channel our emotions into something positive. As we worked on the mural over the next few weeks, our home began to feel more like a sanctuary again. The walls, once filled with painful memories, now echoed with laughter and creativity. We were building something new, something just for us. One afternoon, as we took a break from painting, Emily looked at me with a thoughtful expression. Dad, do you think we'll ever be truly happy again? I smiled, brushing a stray hair from her face. I think we're already on our way, Emily. Happiness doesn't come from having a perfect life. It comes from finding joy in the little things, from being with the people we love, and from creating new memories. We'll get there, one step at a time. She nodded, a smile spreading across her face. I think you're right, and I'm glad we're doing this together. As we resumed painting, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The road ahead was still uncertain, and the scars of betrayal would always be a part of our story. But we were moving forward, healing together, and finding new ways to build a life filled with hope and love. As time went on, the initial shock of Lisa's betrayal began to fade, but the scars it left on our lives were still very much present. Emily and I had developed a routine, a new normal that allowed us to function and even find moments of happiness. But the real challenge came when the scandal started to ripple out into our wider community. One Saturday morning, I was sipping my coffee and reading the news when my phone rang. It was Karen, one of Lisa's closest friends. We hadn't spoken much since the incident, so I was surprised to see her name on my screen. "Hello, Karen," I answered, bracing myself for what she might say. "Will, I need to talk to you about something important," she began, her voice tense. "It's about Lisa." I felt a familiar knot form in my stomach. "What is it?" "There are rumors going around," she said hesitantly. "People are talking about Lisa and Tyler. Someone saw them together, and now the whole neighborhood is buzzing with gossip." I sighed, rubbing my temples. "I was afraid of this. What exactly are people saying?" "That she's been having an affair with Tyler, that it's the reason she left. It's all over social media now. I thought you should know before you hear it from someone else." "Thanks for letting me know, Karen. I appreciate it," I said, feeling a mix of anger and resignation. "Will, I'm so sorry this is happening. If you need anything, please let me know." "I will. Thanks, Karen." I hung up and sat there for a moment, processing the news. It was bad enough that Lisa had betrayed us, but now our private pain was becoming public gossip. I knew I had to tell Emily before she heard it from someone else. Emily was in her room painting a new piece of the mural we had started. I knocked on the door and she looked up, smiling. "Hey, Dad, what's up?" "Can we talk for a minute?" I asked, sitting down on the edge of her bed. Her smile faded, replaced by a look of concern. "What is it?" "I just got off the phone with Karen. She said that people are talking about your mom and Tyler. The rumors are spreading, and I wanted you to hear it from me before anyone else." Emily's face turned pale, and she put down her paintbrush. "What are they saying?" "That your mom had an affair with Tyler and that's why she left. It's all over social media now." She looked away, her eyes filling with tears. "I hate this, Dad. I hate that everyone knows our business." "I know, sweetheart, but we can't control what other people say. We can only control how we respond to it. We'll get through this together." Emily nodded, wiping her eyes. "Thanks for telling me, Dad. I wish this would all go away." "So do I," said, hugging her tightly. "But we're stronger than this. We'll face it together." The next few days were tough. Everywhere we went, it felt like people were whispering and staring. I tried to shield Emily from as much of it as possible, but I knew she felt the weight of the gossip just as much as I did. Lisa called a few times, leaving voicemails begging for forgiveness and asking to see Emily. Each time I felt a pang of sadness and anger. I knew Emily needed to have a relationship with her mother, but I also needed to protect her from further pain. One evening, after putting Emily to bed, I listened to one of Lisa's voicemails. Her voice was filled with regret and desperation. "Will, please, I need to see Emily. I know I messed up, but she's my daughter, and I miss her so much. Please, let's find a way to work this out, I'm begging you." I knew I couldn't ignore her forever. Emily needed closure, and perhaps seeing Lisa would help her process everything that had happened. The next morning, I sat down with Emily over breakfast. "Your mom wants to see you," I said gently. "I think it might be good for you to talk to her, to get some closure, but it's up to you." Emily looked thoughtful, then nodded. "I think I need to see her, to understand why she did what she did." "Okay," I said. "I'll arrange a time for her to come over." When Lisa arrived that evening, I could see the weight of her actions etched on her face. She looked thinner, her eyes hollow and filled with sorrow. Emily stood by my side, her expression a mix of anger and longing. "Hi, Emily," Lisa said softly, tears welling up in her eyes. "I've missed you so much." Emily crossed her arms, her face stern. "Why did you do it, Mom? How could you betray us like that?" Lisa's tears flowed freely as she tried to explain. "I'm so sorry, Emily. I was lonely and confused, and I made a terrible mistake. I never meant to hurt you or your dad." "But you did," Emily shot back, her voice trembling with emotion. "You hurt us both." "I know, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life," Lisa said, reaching out to touch Emily's arm. "I love you so much, and I hope one day you can forgive me." Emily looked at her mother, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know if I can, Mom, but I'll try." Lisa nodded, her own tears falling freely. "That's all I can ask for. I'm so sorry, Emily." They hugged, and I felt a bittersweet pang in my heart. It was a small step towards healing, but I knew we still had a long way to go. After Lisa left, Emily and I sat in the living room, the silence between us heavy but comforting. "Do you think things will ever get back to normal, Dad?" she asked quietly. "Maybe not the way they were," I admitted. "But we'll find a new normal. We'll create a new life, filled with new memories and happiness." Emily nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "I think we can do that." As the weeks turned into months, the gossip slowly died down, and life began to settle into a new rhythm. Emily and I continued to work on our mural, each stroke of the brush a step towards healing. Lisa visited occasionally, and while things were still tense, we were finding a way to coexist for Emily's sake. One evening, as we were finishing the final touches on the mural, Emily looked at me and smiled. "We did it, Dad. It's beautiful." "It is," I agreed, admiring our work. "Just like our life will be. We're building something new, something stronger." And in that moment, I knew it was true. We had faced the storm and come out the other side, scarred but not broken. We were moving forward, together, creating a future filled with hope and love. Months passed, and the dust from the scandal began to settle. Emily and I had found a new rhythm in our lives, a routine that brought us some measure of peace and normalcy. The pain of Lisa's betrayal lingered, but it no longer defined our every waking moment. We had built a new life together, one that was slowly but surely mending the broken pieces of our hearts. Lisa continued to visit occasionally. Each visit was a test of my resolve to remain civil for Emily's sake. I still harbored anger and resentment, but I had to set those feelings aside for the benefit of our daughter. Emily needed her mother, even if I could no longer see Lisa in the same light. One Sunday afternoon, Lisa came over to take Emily out for lunch. As they were getting ready to leave, Lisa hesitated at the door, turning to face me. "Will, can we talk for a minute?" I nodded, my guard up. "Sure. What's on your mind?" She took a deep breath, looking me in the eye. "I know I can never undo the hurt I've caused, but I want you to know that I'm committed to making things right for Emily. I've started seeing a therapist, and I'm working on myself. I hope in time you can find it in your heart to forgive me." Her words were sincere, but the pain was still too raw. "I appreciate that, Lisa. I really do. But forgiveness isn't something that happens overnight. It's going to take time." "I understand," she said, her voice tinged with sadness. "I just wanted you to know that I'm trying." I nodded again, watching as she left with Emily. I hoped she was sincere, not just for her sake but for Emily's as well. It was crucial for Emily to see her parents working towards a better relationship, even if it was just as co-parents. Life gradually returned to a semblance of normalcy. Emily was thriving in school and her art classes. She was making new friends and seemed genuinely happy, which filled me with a sense of relief and pride. I too found solace in my work and the support of friends and family. One evening, as I was cleaning up after dinner, my phone buzzed with a message from David. "Hey, Will. A few of us are getting together this weekend for a barbecue. Would love for you and Emily to join us." David had been a pillar of support throughout the ordeal, always there with a kind word or a listening ear. I hadn't been very social since the scandal, but maybe it was time to start reconnecting with people. I replied, "Thanks, David. We'd love to come. What time?" "Saturday at 2 p.m. Can't wait to see you guys." That Saturday, Emily and I arrived at David's house, the air filled with the scent of grilled meat and the sound of laughter. It felt good to be surrounded by friends, to see Emily playing with other kids and laughing freely. As the evening wore on, I found myself relaxing more and more. The weight of the past months seemed to lift, replaced by a sense of hope and possibility. David handed me a beer, a knowing smile on his face. "It's good to see you out and about, Will. You look like you're doing better." Thanks, David. It's been a rough road, but we're getting there, I said, taking a sip of the cold beer. You and Emily are strong. You've been through hell, but you've come out the other side. That's something to be proud of. I nodded, feeling a swell of gratitude. I couldn't have done it without you, man. Your support has meant the world to me. That's what friends are for, he said, clinking his bottle against mine. Here's to new beginnings. As the sun set and the sky turned shades of orange and pink, I watched Emily play, her laughter echoing in the warm evening air. For the first time in a long while, I felt a genuine sense of peace. The weeks turned into months, and the new life we had built continued to grow stronger. Emily's mural was complete, a vibrant testament to our journey and the healing we had found through creativity and love. It was a beautiful reminder that despite the pain and betrayal, we had the power to create something new and beautiful. Lisa's visits became more structured, with clear boundaries and schedules that worked for all of us. The tension between us slowly eased, replaced by a tentative but necessary cooperation. We were learning to communicate better, for Emily's sake if nothing else. One evening, as I was tucking Emily into bed, she looked up at me with those bright eyes that always seemed to see right through me. Dad, do you think you'll ever get married again? The question caught me off guard. I hadn't given much thought to my own future beyond ensuring Emily's happiness and stability. I don't know, Emily. Maybe someday. But right now, my focus is on you and making sure you're happy and safe. She smiled, her eyes twinkling. I just want you to be happy too, Dad. You deserve it. I hugged her tightly, feeling a lump in my throat. Thank you, sweetheart. That means a lot to me. As I left her room and closed the door softly behind me, I realized that Emily was right. It was time to start thinking about my own happiness as well. The journey of healing and rebuilding wasn't just about surviving. It was about finding joy and fulfillment in life once more. I began to take small steps towards rediscovering myself. I joined a local book club, something I had always wanted to do but never found the time for. I reconnected with old hobbies like hiking and photography, finding solace in nature and the creative process. Through these activities, I met new people and started to build a community around me. I even went on a few dates, taking things slow and allowing myself to enjoy the process of getting to know someone new. It was strange and sometimes daunting, but it was also exciting and hopeful. One person I met through the book club was Sarah. She was kind, intelligent, and shared my love for literature and the outdoors. We started spending more time together, hiking on weekends and discussing our favorite books over coffee. There was a connection between us, something that felt genuine and promising. One evening, after a particularly beautiful hike, Sarah and I sat on a hill overlooking the city. The sunset painted the sky with vibrant colors, and a comfortable silence settled between us. Will, she said softly, turning to look at me, I've really enjoyed getting to know you. You're an amazing person, and I admire your strength and resilience. Thank you, Sarah, I replied, feeling a warmth spread through me. I've enjoyed getting to know you too. You've brought a lot of joy into my life these past few months. She smiled, her eyes reflecting the colors of the sunset. I'm glad to hear that. I think we could be really good together. I reached for her hand, feeling a sense of peace and hope. I think so too. As we sat there hand in hand, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I realized that I was ready to embrace the future. The pain of the past would always be a part of my story, but it didn't have to define me. I had the power to create a new life, one filled with love, hope, and endless possibilities. And so, as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, I looked at Sarah and felt a sense of gratitude. For the first time in a long while, I was truly happy. We were moving forward, together, and the future looked bright. A year had passed since Lisa's betrayal came to light. In that time, Emily and I had built a life we could be proud of, one filled with love, creativity, and healing. My relationship with Sarah had blossomed into something beautiful and promising, and for the first time in a long while, I felt genuinely happy. Emily had grown into a resilient and confident young woman. Her art continued to flourish, and she had made strong connections with her peers and teachers. Seeing her thrive filled me with pride, and reassured me that we were on the right path. One evening as we sat down for dinner, Emily looked at me with a thoughtful expression. "Dad, there's something I want to talk to you about." "What's on your mind, sweetheart?" I asked, setting down my fork. "I've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened over the past year," she began, her voice steady but serious. "And I want you to know how grateful I am for everything you've done. You've been my rock, and I don't know what I would have done without you." Her words touched me deeply, and I reached across the table to take her hand. "Emily, you've been my rock too. We've gotten through this together, and I couldn't be prouder of you." She smiled, her eyes shining with emotion. "There's one more thing. I think it's time for me to forgive Mom. Holding on to the anger and pain isn't helping me anymore. I want to move forward, and I think forgiveness is part of that." I nodded, feeling a mix of pride and relief. "I think that's a very mature decision, Emily. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting what happened, but it can help you heal. I'm proud of you for wanting to take that step." Later that week, Emily and I met with Lisa at a park. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful. Lisa looked nervous, but there was a determination in her eyes that I hadn't seen before. "Hi, Mom," Emily said, hugging her mother tightly. "I've missed you." Lisa's eyes filled with tears. "I've missed you too, Emily, more than you can imagine." They sat on a bench talking quietly while I gave them some space. I watched from a distance, feeling a sense of peace and closure. Emily's decision to forgive Lisa was a significant step in her healing process, and it was a testament to her strength and resilience. After their conversation, Lisa approached me, her eyes still red from crying. "Will, I can't thank you enough for everything you've done for Emily. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm grateful that you've been such a strong presence in her life." I nodded, feeling a sense of finality. "We've both been through a lot, Lisa. But Emily's happiness is the most important thing. I hope you can continue to build a positive relationship with her." As we walked back to the car, Emily slipped her hand into mine. "Thank you, Dad. For everything." "Any time, Emily. Any time." Life continued to move forward, and with each passing day, the pain of the past faded a little more. My relationship with Sarah grew stronger, and she became a beloved part of our lives. She and Emily formed a close bond, and the three of us spent many weekends hiking, reading, and enjoying each other's company. One sunny afternoon, while Sarah and I were on a hike, I decided it was time to take the next step in our relationship. We reached a scenic overlook, the valley stretching out below us in a patchwork of green and gold. "Sarah," I began, my heart pounding, "this past year has been a journey of healing and rediscovery for me. You've brought so much joy and love into my life, and I can't imagine my future without you." She looked at me, her eyes wide with anticipation. "Will, I feel the same way. You and Emily have become my family, and I love you both so much." I took a deep breath and pulled a small box from my pocket. "Sarah, will you marry me?" Her eyes filled with tears of joy as she nodded. "Yes, Will, yes, I will." We embraced, the world around us fading away. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude and happiness. The future was bright, and it was filled with endless possibilities. The wedding was a small, intimate affair, held in the garden of our home. Emily stood by my side as my best man, her smile radiant with happiness. Our closest friends and family gathered to celebrate, and the air was filled with love and joy. As Sarah and I exchanged vows, I looked out at the faces of those who had supported us through the darkest times. My heart swelled with gratitude for the journey that had brought us to this moment. We had faced heartbreak and betrayal, but we had emerged stronger, united by love and resilience. After the ceremony, we celebrated with laughter, music, and dancing. Emily gave a heartfelt speech, her words filled with wisdom beyond her years. "Dad, you've taught me what it means to be strong and to never give up. And Sarah, you've shown us both that love can heal and bring new beginnings. I'm so happy for both of you." As the evening drew to a close, Sarah and I stood on the porch, watching the stars twinkle in the night sky. "We did it," she said softly, her hand in mine. "We built a new life together." "Yes, we did," I replied, feeling a sense of fulfillment and peace. "And I wouldn't change a thing." As we looked out at the future, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, as a family. The scars of the past had shaped us, but they no longer defined us. We had found love, hope, and happiness, and that was all that mattered. And so, our journey continued, filled with the promise of new adventures, shared dreams, and a love that would endure through all the ups and downs of life. Together we were stronger, and the future was ours to create. The end.
Subscribe to the channel and thank you for watching.